Good evening. It's Hamden Action Now. We're here to talk about voting in Connecticut. Tomorrow, we have two very important bills that will be having public hearing. We have SB 184, which is regarding the extension of the absentee ballot rights that we enjoyed during COVID-19, where we didn't need an excuse to get an absentee ballot. I'm going to be speaking specifically about that one. And we also have another really good one tonight that we want to talk about, which is also going to be up for public hearing tomorrow. And that's House Bill 5262 as well, which is the early voting. So stay tuned. We have Representative Robin Porter from the Democrat from the 94th District of New Haven, serving New Haven and Hamden. And we have Taryn Loettke from Common Cause, Connecticut. Stay tuned. It's going to be a great talk, and get your paper and pencils and things together, because we're going to need everybody to send in written testimony to support these expansion to voting rights here in the great state of Connecticut. Hello, the star-studded cast. Thank you for joining us tonight, Representative Porter from the 94th District, serving Hamden and New Haven. All right, and thank you, Mr. Taryn Loettke, for coming and spending this evening with us to talk about all this awesome legislation that's going to be happening tomorrow. The public hearings are going to be happening tomorrow. Denise Merrill will go first, starting at 10 o'clock. And so tell us about, I would like to talk first about Senate Bill 184, which is the act concerning extending through November 8th, 2022, which is this year's election, general election, the eligibility as a result of COVID-19 and concerning the eligibility to vote by absentee. That's a real big thing for me, because I don't know why in the world I need to give the state of Connecticut an excuse for getting my absentee ballot. If I don't want to get up and come out of my pajamas, but I still want to exercise my rights as a citizen, I should be able to do it in the comfort of my home without having to explain to the registrar here in Hamden why I need to get an absentee ballot. So please tell me more about that.
Well, basically, and it's always a pleasure to be here, Rhonda. And it's great to see you again, Representative Porter. So, you know, we've been at Common Cause in Connecticut and nationally, we've been starting to talk about the freedom to vote. I just, as an aside during the conversation, I'd like to hear what both of your reactions are to the notion of the freedom to vote, as opposed to not instead of, but perhaps in addition to, you know, the terminology of voting rights. I just wanted to at some point hear what both of you think about that in terms of a way to have a bigger frame for what we're about. Anyway, supposedly there's a lot of polling and stuff that says that works pretty well, but I'd like to hear what you think about it. And as far as tomorrow, really, it comes down to extending, it comes down to people being free to vote by absentee ballot this year due to COVID-19 still in 2022 through the midterm elections. That's what it comes down to. And both bills are about absentee ballots. The other one, HB 5262, deals with certain absentee voting eligibility statutes, and we don't want to get into the weeds, but it basically, that one, also deals with COVID in a sense that it makes the state statutes more in line with the Constitution, and the Constitution doesn't say it has to be your illness; it just says illness. And so, therefore, if you make the state statute line up with the Constitution, then it's possible to interpret illness as to be the fact that other people have COVID and I don't want to get it. And so both bills are about the freedom to vote by absentee ballot. And the trouble is, if we get too far deep into the weeds, we lose the forest for the trees. And what's really going on here is taking away obstacles to voting, and being able to vote safely and securely by absentee ballot is an absolutely essential thing that we have been able to do, and that we ought to be able to definitely this year continue being able to do. And then, yes, we're going to have the struggle of changing the Constitution down the road, but that's not today. That's a few tomorrows down the road. It's in process, but that's not what tomorrow's about. Tomorrow's about getting it extended through the midterm elections. That's the short story. I voted by absentee ballot the last couple times, and you know what? I really liked being able to have the freedom to go vote on my own schedule without having to squeeze myself into 14 hours of one day. Okay? I mean,
that's the part.
Ludicrous to me. The fact that that's what we're used to in this state makes me kind of ill, actually, that we're also trained to think that there's only 14 hours. I mean, voting in an election is arguably the single most important thing I can do, or a person can do, to change the world, to try to make it a better place. Okay? And to restrict a person, especially in Black and brown and communities of color and disenfranchised communities where there's already way extra obstacles compared to everybody, all of us white people who encounter way less struggle in the world. We all know it. And it's just really, I think about Representative Porter and Rhonda when you talked about how the Keith Center got locked. And I mean, there's one.
Right. You're muted, Representative Porter.
Thank you. And thank you for having me tonight. This is ever so important. And it is what you're saying. At the end of the day, communities are impacted across the state, but specifically and especially in communities of color. We know Rhonda and I did have that experience at the Keith Center where they locked the door. And when questioned, they said, oh, well, the state said that because of COVID, and that was absolutely not true. And had we not been standing there to tell the gentleman who had went up to the door and pulled on the door was locked, and he was like, oh, they closed already? I thought I got here in time. And he's looking at his watch and he's walking away. And we're like, no, whoa, no, go back. Knock on the door. They're in there. It's not 8 o'clock. You can vote. But just imagine if we hadn't been standing out there, that would have been a vote gone. And maybe, folks that came behind him would have done the same thing. Maybe not. Maybe somebody would have not. But those aren't the chances that we should be taking when we go to do one of the most important things we have to do, during our existence here on the earth after the age of 18. And that is to vote, because voting is power. It is your voice. It is how you get to show up without having to be in those spaces, right? You send representatives in to represent you in those spaces. So I totally support the bills as they are, but I do agree with you, Teron. We need to be looking at this constitutionally wise. This needs to be on the books permanently. Mm-hmm. It is removing barriers to voting. It would allow more people to vote. And like Rhonda said, in the manner that's most convenient to her, if it means sitting at home in her PJs. New York's current absentee voting laws also have the potential to disproportionately benefit those with high social economic status. Let's talk about that, because we know the disparities that exist in communities of color. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's going to reduce the polling lines, the administrative burden, especially on election officials, right? And it's going to save money. It's going to decrease the total cost of administering elections. It's a win-win for so many reasons. But at the end of the day, it really is about meeting people where they are. And there are many people that want this. And we need you guys to show up. And if you haven't, signed up to vote, if you haven't signed up to testify, it is too late to do that. But it is not too late, as Rhonda stated earlier, to get your pen and your pad, get on your computer, your laptop, write your testimony, and get it sent in. Taryn, this is a link, if I'm not mistaken, that will put you on a landing page where you can just kind of fill it in as a form letter. and submit it right from there, which is even easier. But you have to make sure that your voice is being heard during this public hearing. And if you're not able to be, virtually present, then you most certainly should take the time to either write and submit testimony or go to this landing page and fill in for the form letter. This is really important, and it's going to put a lot of folks on notice.
Right. People don't understand how important voting is. We talk about, I just was in a Zoom just before this one with Spring Forward here, a group of community group in Spring Glen working on and trying to figure out the whole to try to desegregate Spring Glen because it is a segregated community and how it became segregated. And so we were talking about how important it is to have, these various programs to help end the blight. There's a lot of blight in Hartford and Bridgeport and various areas. And so we had the gentleman from the land bank that came and talked about how they're investing funds in developers, just individuals like me. I could be a developer and helping giving the financing to go out and find these blighted properties and to redevelop them and sell them to people who are looking to be first-time home buyers.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know how these communities became blighted, and because they were red line and they were yellow line in the 1930s. And so here we are in 2022, and you can't afford to buy in Spring Glen in these areas that were not red line because those folks were able to get into these communities when they were at the ground level, on the ground floor, when it was $10,000 or $5,000.
Introductory prices. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Now you can't get in there because it's $350,000 or $400,000 to get in. So my point is the leadership at that time, the people who were being voted into office, elected to have these type of restrictions to prevent folks from getting into this housing. So this ballot, the ballot changes the trajectory of these types of programs to allow to create wealth and expand wealth through equity and home ownership. We can't get that unless we get the leadership that can put these kind of programs in place to build schools and build communities and build neighborhoods that are upward mobile and healthy and growing. This ballot is such a powerful, it's not even, it looks like it's just a little piece of paper, but it's an active, moving, breathing document. It creates neighborhood, it creates futures, it creates hope in your future, because you can elect your leadership and you can give your leadership a plan and say, this is what we need in our community. So when we say that it's so important to be able to have general access and free access to get to that ballot, no matter what your circumstance is, if you're working, you have sick parents, you've got sick children, and you can't get to the ballot, you shouldn't need to give that as an excuse. You should just be able to say, I can't get there. Please send me an absentee ballot. Here's my information. That's that.
Right.
And it's a very important part of how our communities move and what democracy looks like.
Can I ask a quick question? Representative Porter, did you know that? You might have known this. I didn't know until I was looking through our information on a Connecticut State Voting Rights Act, which we're fighting for as well. Did you know that Connecticut was the first state to use racist literacy tests in voting?
I'm not surprised. Not surprised at all.
Number one.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I think the thing that shocked me the most when I moved to Connecticut 22 years ago was how segregated it was.
Still is.
Yes. So I mean, like that was what put me on notice. And then there is, the dealings that you have with people and the interactions that you have with people. And as a Black woman in Connecticut, I can say it hasn't always been pleasant.
It's very segregated, and I think it's because my theory is it's because of the fact that just as everything else has been segregated in our culture, this access to the ballots are as well. Just like we heard last night, you have certain communities who have long lines. In fact, we were out at the Keefe Center last year, and not last year, 2020. It was
2020.
And you couldn't believe that people were standing out in the cold, in a pandemic, and it was kind of sprinkling, like it was raining.
Mm-hmm.
Standing to get into a locked building. And this, and then people say, oh, we don't have any, we don't have any voter suppression. We don't have any barriers to vote.
That within itself is a form of voter suppression, because after a long day, hard work, you're running to vote, and you jump out and you look up and there's this line and it's raining and it's cold and you're saying to yourself, am I really getting ready to do this? Like, I do want to vote, but do I want to vote that bad? Right. And there are people that turn around and go home and say, I've witnessed it. I'm not doing, and they get back in their car and they go home. And that's a vote loss. Multiplied by how many though?
585,000 registered in Connecticut. Was it 585? It was over 500,000 people registered to vote, didn't go to the polls in 2020, even though it was really the election of our lifetime. So that's a lot. And all you need is to drive by and you can see people standing out in a line. You got two little kids in the backseat of the car. You do not have time to go stand in a line for an hour with two small children in the cold in November to vote. I mean, it's just really disgraceful, honestly.
Right. And it shouldn't just be that you can't make it to the ballot box. It also has to be, I don't want to make it to the ballot box. Like, this is my choice. I choose to vote in this manner.
Yeah.
And we can expect to see another surge in COVID. I mean, it's just like the flu now. It's like when the wintertime hits and all the kids go back to school, just like last November, the surge started right around the middle of November. We'll probably get the flu and COVID will start back up again sometime in November. So here we are, the beginning of November, and we got to go stand up in the line.
Mm-hmm.
Not so.
It's frustrating because right now, as we speak, there are many people across this state submitting written testimony against extending absentee ballot use due to COVID for the midterm elections. And I am quoting from one gentleman in Lyme, Connecticut, whose public testimony is up on the CGA website. I'm only going to read one line of his testimony, but this is the gist of what is getting sent in, which is why we need people of sound mind and heart need to submit testimonies, and we make it very easy. The link right there makes it very easy to do so. You don't have to know a lot about it. You can look at that link. It gives you it'll open up your email even for you. If you click the button at the bottom to the right email address, you can use the language that's there. But here's what this guy says, and I'm not going to use his name because I'm not going to go there. But it says, nobody has ever been denied the ability to vote. Do I need to read the rest of his testimony?
No. No, you don't need to read the rest. We get it.
That's what we're up against.
Yeah, I mean, see, that's the point. Like, and this is another thing that I have a problem with is that because what your experience has been, you don't speak for everybody else. We stood there. I got video. I came rolling up my video. I'm gonna bring that video next time we have a talk where everybody was standing in line, and I rolled up to this guy and said, how about all the voter suppression here in Connecticut? He's like, no, what are you talking about? We're not. I said, bro, you're standing in line in the middle of a pandemic in the cold, waiting to get into a locked building on a work day. He was like,
sounds like a little voter suppression to me.
I said, why wouldn't they at least give you the day off so you don't? I said, are you at work? He's like, well, I took off some hours. I said, you must have some. He goes, I use my vacation time. So you use vacation time to go stand up in line to exercise your civil rights
to vote.
We had paid day off. That was in the big elections bill last year, and it was in there. The time of the paid time off for the employer pays for the. It got whittled back though. We passed a lot of good stuff. We restored the right to vote to people on parole.
Yes.
We sure did.
Yes,
we did. Right.
Yes.
Amen.
But prisoners, they're gonna get the right to vote eventually,
We're going to get that back, because you know what? I don't care what building you're sitting in. You're still a citizen of the United States of America, and you still have that civil right.
Well, the whole
That's
Your
right.
civil right does not punch out because you're in prison. Your
Absolutely.
birth
That's
certificate
right.
doesn't punch out because you're in prison. You know, I'm
Right.
saying, like, between the gerrymandering
And you
has gone
still have
on.
interests regardless to where you are, you know, even if you are incarcerated, you know, more than likely you have a partner, a spouse, children, parents, and those resources and your right to vote, to weigh in on things such as that, because everything that we legislate touches your life from A to Z. Just check the committees in the building: appropriations, banking, commerce, education, finance, labor, you know,
Labor.
GAE.
GAE.
Yes.
And who decided? Who made the decision that it was okay to strip away someone's rights? Who made that choice? You know.
Well, Taryn, let me tell you what my theory is. We're back to the Rhonda's theory tonight. We're going to be talking about Rhonda's theories all night. You know what happened is that people stopped paying attention. And so somebody somewhere had this little legislation. They just kind of slipped it in there and said, you know what, this is how we're going to punish people. We're going to take away their civil right, something that's their birthright, the only birthright that we actually got as an American citizen. We're going to take it away because we decide, whoever they were at that time, we're going to decide that this is how we punish them. We take away their civil right. Now, doesn't that sound a wee bit familiar about some other civil rights that have been taken away from people, especially people of color?
That's what we heard Representative Mastro Francesco say last year in the GAA committee.
I heard it.
Turn your camera off before you came on.
This is how they're punished. And I quote, this is their punishment. The punishment to take away a person of color's civil right.
They should be punished, she said.
I mean, okay, you could take away their money, maybe make them pay a fine, and you're already taking away their freedom, right? Their freedom's gone. So now you're also going to say your right, your birthright as a citizen of the United States, based on the Constitution that we all were part of here in Connecticut in 1860, whatever. They decided that, no, you don't even get that anymore.
It all goes, it all goes back to that Civil War that's not over.
It's not over. It's not over until we're all free. And that's in spirit and in truth. You know, like I was thinking about the conversation a few minutes ago, and you actually started talking about it just now with your theory, because I was sitting here saying it's like, the slow boil, you put it in the hot water and, it ain't too, it's lukewarm. Then you turn it up a little bit, get used to that, turn up. And next thing you know, you boiling, you on the plate, you somebody's dinner.
Somebody's dinner.
Yes. And that's exactly what it's these subliminal changes, and it's the lack of transparency and accountability that gets all meshed in there, and all the other distractions, and nobody's paying attention, and the temperature's just getting turned up, and you just getting cooked, ate alive.
I wonder when that even became a law that they took the voting rights away. Taryn, have we researched that? When did that happen?
Yeah, I'm going to pull up our testimonies from restoring I want to say the freedom to vote to people on parole, because it goes back to the felony disenfranchisement and criminal disenfranchisement all stems from the reaction to the freedom of former slaves.
Right.
Jim Crow. The new Jim Crow.
I kind of figured.
Alexander.
It all goes back to the 1800s after the Civil War, which, by the way, all those Confederate generals got reinstalled real quick right into the top levels of the government, all that, but all of that was a reaction. It's all a reaction to erase Black power.
Yeah, because they were coming back. Now, they had been over there and they had been fighting and they had guns and they were able to be, the men they always were. They just had the liberty to walk it out, over there fighting and killing for a country that didn't even care for them. And many of them got off and walked to a tree and hung in their uniforms. We don't talk about that. We don't
No.
talk about it. But that is exactly what it was. They had to find a check and balance. And it was intimidation. It was threatening. Like the little test you'd have to take when you go to the voting poll. Or how about the fact they show up to your house and tell you better not come into them polls to vote because somebody
Right.
gonna show up missing. People died that were trying to vote. Or that
So you're
did
gonna
vote.
So you take it and we do like we've always done in the history of our country. We quietly create a law to take away that right. So I mean, again, like the 13th Amendment, we can free the slaves, but
Except as a
we're not
criminal
gonna.
penalty. So they took us from the plantation to the penitentiary.
Thank you. And so these are and see what I'm trying to get everybody to understand. This is why I'm so passionate about this. This is still happening.
Absolutely.
If we have legislation in our state that basically still upholds these 1865 traditions and attitudes, and we have state legislators on record, on public, saying that we need to continue to punish Black people, brown people, indigenous people with the preventing their civil rights, you're upholding this is still going on from the 1860s.
I dropped it in the chat, Rhonda.
You sure did. I'm looking at it.
Felony disenfranchisement laws proliferated in the United States after the Civil War as a way for former Confederate states to circumvent Reconstruction amendments and stamp out Black political power. That's it.
I will drop that into the information. All right. Well, we have another awesome.
The most stringent criminal disenfranchisement laws in the Northeast, and it is the only state in the region that still prohibits those on parole from casting a ballot. Well, that's history.
Until last session.
That's history.
Right? Well,
history.
We have Miss Dory Dumas coming in now from NAACP. Here she is.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Oh my God, I've been on call after call, but I wanted to get on this one as well, trying to make sure that our voice is in there.
Well, welcome, and we're so happy to talk with you tonight. We were over here preaching about the ballot and how important it is, and we're also talking about how we got here with regard to folks in prison not being allowed to vote and that's their punishment, that they shouldn't be, they should have their civil rights taken away. And I'm like, well, in 2021, we're still talking about punishing people by taking away their civil rights. I could think of a whole bunch of civil rights that were taken away from us as a punishment.
Absolutely. And when we think about history and we think about all the poll taxes and all the block the votes and barriers, and you would think in 2022, we wouldn't be talking about these things, but they're happening. People are literally trying to turn back the clock. People are literally trying to block the vote. And we cannot allow that on our watch. We have to stay on top of it. We have to encourage people to really put forth every effort they can to make sure that everybody can exercise their right to vote and make it as easy as possible.
That's right.
Absolutely. And that's why these kind of conversations are vital. We have to have these conversations in public and often, because we have to make sure the community is aware of the value of that ballot, the fight that we have to continue to fight, the struggle that we're fighting, because as Taryn just read, there are people writing into the GAE for tomorrow to say that not in support of these expansions that are absolutely overdue. And so we have to continue to make sure our side and our interests and our very powerful and passionate group is being heard. Like, this is ridiculous in 2022 that we still have people being punished by taking away their civil rights.
Absolutely. And we need to be finding ways to make it easier. We need to make sure that people speak up. It makes sense that people who don't want people to have certain powers will be trying to block it. So those that are doing it have a reason for that. They don't want people to use that power. They want to be able to stay in control, do whatever they want, and not have the interests of everybody they're supposed to be representing. We cannot allow that. We have to speak up for those that don't have a voice, for those who can't speak up, for those who may not even understand the full system. But what we try to really encourage and get people to understand, every aspect of your life has to do with politics. And the people you're voting for, the people that are in there are voting for everything that matters. So even if you don't think it matters, it does. Jobs, homes, your streets, your schools, everything. So that's the message we're trying to make sure that people speak up and talk about. And yes, we know that there are people trying to block that. Yes, we know people don't care about that. But in our communities, we care. We want our communities to have that power, to have that vote, and to have it to be easier for them to exercise that right to vote.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always talk to people and I say, oh, did you vote? And who are you voting for? Did you investigate and research your candidate? Well, I'm not a political person. I'm just like, do you pay taxes? I said, you filled up your car with gas, right? You just paid a whole lot.
Did you go to the grocery store? Did you go to school?
That little road you just rode on, that road wasn't free either.
That's right. That's right. And the taxes and the gas and you name it, everything.
You are a political person. And so you just, when you do not vote, you basically say, here's my checkbook. I'm going to sign it. You just take as much as you want and let me know when you're done.
Right. So no, I definitely wanted to get on. That's a message that the NAACP has been trying to get across. That's the work of the NAACP. This matters to us. This is the foundation, the grassroots. This is where it all begins. And so it will always be a priority for us. And again, we speak up for those who may not understand how powerful their voice is, but we're trying to empower people. We want our representatives, the people who are making these laws and making decisions, to understand it's important that every person has that right and that we make it as easy as possible, that we expand it. Not everyone has the luxury to be able to go to the polls that day. People have jobs that are not flexible. People have schedules, or if they're caretakers. So there's 1,000 reasons why it could prevent people from voting. So we need to make sure it's easier here in Connecticut. We talk about a progressive state. We talk about we're in the north, we're in the northeast, and you look around us and so many other states are so much more advanced than we are. And that's not okay. It's not okay for the NAACP, and it shouldn't be okay for people who really care and want Connecticut to stand strong on voting rights. And so don't just talk it, walk it, and make sure the action speaks behind that. And we have those kind of people in place that will pass this forward so that we can expand voting in Connecticut.
Yeah, I could preach too, because, if you really look at our whole system is antiquated. We have here in Hamden, we have a part-time registrar who's only 2 hours a day. So you have to be, if you need to get with her, you need to come in here from 10 to 12, which means you have to leave your job. When we ran for office in 2019, I had to take time off from work to come during those 2 hour window, that little 2 hour window, to get my little paperwork filled out so I can get myself on the ballot and get my petitions. All of it is antiquated. We look at these, in 2020, I learned so much about what other states are doing. Southern states, Georgia.
That's right. Georgia.
Georgia
is more progressive than Connecticut.
And that's not okay. That's exactly right.
Not okay.
Georgia was the first state that came to my mind when you said that, Dory.
Right. So we have a lot of work to do, and we cannot be silent.
Yeah.
Red states are more progressive than northeastern blue states.
They were taking away early voting on Sundays to try to kill Black church political power, right? But we never had early voting for one day.
We never had it.
Yeah.
That's right.
We never had it. Around here, nobody even knows what that is. Early voting. What does that mean? I got to wake up early?
Exactly.
Well, they hang their hat on the fact that, we don't have a lot of turnout. Well, you don't. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Well, we don't have a lot of turnout. Well, you don't have a lot of turnout because, they just recently, in the last 25 years, expanded it to like 8 o'clock. Wasn't it 6 o'clock at one? Was 6 to 6 at one point? And then the graciousness was that we're going to expand it to 8 o'clock. Come on. It is
No.
ridiculous.
Yeah, we have to do better. We have to demand better. We have to want to do better, and we have to hold them accountable and keep that pressure on until we do better. And I'm hoping that this is the year that people finally get this done. Enough already. We need better, and that's just the bottom line. We need better and more expanded voting, early voting. I mean, and because of COVID. 2 years ago when it started, it went very smoothly when we had the absentee ballots. I mean, there really wasn't an issue. We found out then that it could happen. And if it could happen that easily, and when we spoke with the Secretary of State, there were no major issues around it. So, I mean, this should be something that should be able to be done every year and done easily.
Yes, that's what we said earlier.
Absolutely.
That it's time to change the Constitution
Yes.
and make sure that this is a permanent fix.
Yes, I agree.
Because it is a fix.
It's
broken.
And that's in process. It went that amendment went through the both houses, as you know, last session. It's to do no excuse permanently absentee voting.
Yes.
It's got to go back in 2023 for its second
Referendum.
Yes.
It's got to go back through both chambers again at 50% because apparently changing the Constitution. Who wrote the Constitution again in Connecticut? Who wrote that thing?
Owners of slaves.
Exactly.
Oh, is that why it's so hard to change?
I would like to know what's the real rationale they're using as to why they think that expanding it or making it easier. Like, so what are they saying? I guess we'll find out tomorrow as we hear people.
It's fraud. They sing the song about the fraud.
The big lie.
And there's been no data to support that whatsoever.
No evidence at all. Actually, it went extremely smoothly, and that was the message, and that is what it was across the board. So, yeah, okay. It's just another way to block it. That's all it is.
President
Yeah.
Before you got here, President Dumas, I read a quote from a gentleman. I'm not going to read his name or anything, but it's live up on the CGA website right now for testimonies. And he says he's opposed to people being able to vote by absentee ballot this year. And he says, quote, nobody has ever been denied the ability to vote, unquote.
And that's because that's ignorant. Yeah. And
so that's his experience. He doesn't know. How can he speak for?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
you can't speak for all the millions of people that live in Connecticut. You don't know.
Right. Yeah.
But see, this is what we've come to. We've come to folks getting on social media, getting on this, talking about, well, it doesn't bother me. I don't have a problem. I just walk right in. I'm like, well, that's you.
Right.
So how are you going to speak for what happens down in New Haven? What happens in Bridgeport or Stanford? You don't know.
Right.
But see, this is why that ballot is so important, because leadership matters.
Yes, it does.
And elections count and matter. And so we have to understand how powerful that document is. That document is actually can change the trajectory of your life and your whole community. And it is vitally important that we expand access.
I agree. I think
do it immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
So we're trying to get everybody to get on. We put the links in the chat, and it's going to show up on all the platforms that you can log on tonight, write up something in support of this legislation. And if you have any questions, you can send an inbox to Hamden Action Now. As it is a little too late to sign up for public testimony, but even just if you have the ability, put it on. It's our YouTube channel. You can play it in the background. You can hear all the opposition. And hopefully that'll get everybody all inspired. I like opposition.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to the Hamden Action Now. I want to say thank you to anyone who's speaking up, talking up. I certainly thank Taryn and others who sent me information so we can get it out to people. Now we just need the people we're getting it to act on it, to understand and get passionate about it and get behind it. And those that don't right now, hopefully they'll have other chances, because we need to keep this in the forefront as a priority. And we need to talk about this more. So, groups like yours and others doing the work, trying to start from grassroots, spreading it as much as we can. But now we need people who are hearing this to actually just take a couple of steps. It's not a whole lot to do. Somebody can go in and type it up in no time and be done, and at least have your voice heard through a written testimony. So let's make sure people are doing that.
We're going to be talking about this all the way up until November, because don't we have a wonderful referendum question happening this year on our ballot?
We do.
Very important. And you know what? I missed it. I remember I had this big old argument with people. They were like, "Oh no, it was on there in 2014." I'm like, "It was not on there on 2014." They're like, "Yes, it was." I pulled it.
2022.
I was wrong. It was on there. I didn't even pay attention because guess what? No one was educated. Nobody was looking for it. You know, so we are going to be ready. And then I had politicians. I'm not going to name them. They were like, "Oh, the voters don't want early voting. They don't want it because they shot it down." I'm like, "Sir,
No,
please don't
that's not
disrespect.
that's
Don't
And it's
insult me."
unfortunate because I haven't really seen where there's been any public push or announcing or educating around the referendum.
So
It's
that's our
coming.
job.
It's-
That's our
oh,
job.
That's our job.
That's our
Yes.
job.
It is.
I know for
is.
sure that the NAACP, and I'm also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha and the Divine Nine across the board, we are going to take a more active role. We're going to utilize the power we have, the voice we have, and our
Yes.
membership to get it out. And I
Yes.
think every organization,
huge.
every group, every church, people have to talk about it. People have
Yes.
to keep it in the forefront and educate our community. This is important. This is going to be on the ballot. Look for it. Here's where it'll be. Make copy. You know, I mean, those are the kinds of things we have to do. We have to go the extra mile, the extra step. We got to take excuses off of the table. I didn't know, or I wasn't informed, just like you said, Rhonda, because we didn't share that information when it came out. But
That's
now
right.
we know that was the problem. We can't,
Yep.
we got to eliminate the problem and at least
That's
do our
right.
part to get the word out. Utilize every avenue, every outlet, email, Facebook, Instagram, whatever.
Doctor's
people use.
office, grocery
Yeah.
store, library,
Yes.
mall,
Absolutely.
And
wherever
this
you
year,
are, just ask somebody. Did you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
once that ballot comes out, we're gonna make a mock ballot and put
Yes.
some lit together, and we're gonna have
Yeah.
that lit all over Connecticut.
Yep.
Everywhere I
That's
go, I'm gonna say,
good.
"Here you go."
Yep.
And
And,
you-
and
and
we,
you-
we
and
actually
you
have
too.
to do it. We actually, in our communities, I think the best thing
Start
is
doing it now.
start early and
Yes.
get on the ground and make sure
Yes.
you get in. Go to where the people are. Don't expect that they're going to be
Meet
looking
them
for.
where they
So
are.
exactly. That's what we're going to have to do, and that's what we're prepared to do.
Amen.
Right now, Hamden Action Now also now has a PAC because we created a PAC because they're so furious about all of these issues, and we
Yeah.
need better leadership. So I'm going to make sure I put that link out there that if anyone wants to donate to the Hamden Action Now Political Action Committee, our PAC is just specifically on voting rights. We are supporting candidates who support expansion to expand access to the ballot box.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that is because you know what? I will always stay in good trouble behind that because I am a disciple of John Lewis.
Yeah.
And I will
That's
say that
right.
proudly.
And so am I, and so are a lot of people. And it's just shameful that in the United States it has not passed yet. And I'm not
Isn't
going to
that
rest.
something?
I'm not going to rest until it does. We got to keep pushing. We all have to keep pushing.
That's
And
right.
keep it, like people like to bury it. They think about it for 1 second, then things are gone. No, it's our job that those of us who are aware to just keep talking about it, keep it out there, and keep
Keep the
promoting it.
momentum.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, well, thank you all so much. I will be talking a lot about this between now and November. We're going to be going out on the road. Don't let the weather get better. Please, when that weather gets better, you're going to see Hamden Action Now on scene somewhere.
Yeah.
We're going to be trying to get all the legislators who support this legislation
Yes.
to come and go on our platform. And we're going to be also, anytime there's any type of legislation where we have to do, I know this is a short period. We know this is a short session this year, but whatever we need to
That's
do,
an
we can make
excuse.
it
That's
all
an
happen.
excuse.
Right. We
Yeah,
can get
it is.
That's an
That is
excuse.
absolutely an excuse. I mean,
It's an excuse.
We're
Yeah.
not
People-
saying it is done.
yeah, yeah.
So-
I mean, what better way to get reelected than to run on some awesome legislation and policies
Yeah.
that you passed this year?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
What better way to run and win?
Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
This
right.
is good stuff. This is good stuff. This stuff should be sailing through.
Well, and
We
you
have
know,
the
can we-
majority in the
yeah.
House, in the Senate. We got
We have a
governor that's-
Democratic governor.
Well,
Mhm.
Can
Wow.
we
Our
do a
job to hold them
follow-up?
accountable.
Can we do a follow-up on a Connecticut State Voting Rights Act on a task force to study ranked choice voting here in Connecticut to give voters more options, and on banning foreign contributions to state ballot referendum.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Because-
goodness, yes.
Because we're pushing those 3 right now, and it's unclear what's actually the real deal status wise on the 3 of them. But we have 56 organizations, 3 of the organizations represented in this room right now, signed on to support that. But tomorrow, that stuff honestly is not going to be as heavy a lift. But we got to make sure a Connecticut State Voting Rights Act gets enacted.
Yes.
And that these other 2 things happen. And can we do a follow-up on that?
We definitely can.
Absolutely. And
We
I
are
think
going
that
to
a lot of that is going to depend on education. Like
Yeah.
it's what Dory was saying earlier. The onus falls on us, and it is really about getting the word out and educating people, because knowledge is power is half a truth.
Yeah.
The application of knowledge is the real truth.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, you can take them to the water, but you can't make them drink it. Well, we got to make sure that they will drink it. You know why?
Yeah.
Because folks is thirsty where I come from.
Yeah.
They hungry, right? And we got to make sure that we're feeding them the nutritious stuff. This is it right here.
Yes.
This is the foundation of it all. This is what we need to deliver. We keep saying we got to keep working at it. We got to keep pushing, because we're pregnant with a promise. We need to deliver the baby this year.
Let's do
And
it.
then we need to
Let's
come
do
back and make sure that we change that constitution so that this is the rule of thumb going forward forever, ever.
I love it. Let's do it.
Yes, Connecticut is desperate for constitutional reform.
Yes.
There's so many things that need to be changed from the 1860s that just needs to go away. Should have been gone.
Yeah.
But we
Well,
can
I'll
lead
tell
that
you,
charge.
It is.
Let's
it is.
do it.
It's rooted in the elephant in the room, which is racism. You know,
Yes.
and racism is a policy choice.
Absolutely.
Poverty is a policy choice.
Yes.
Oppression, a policy choice. They are all policy choices, and that is why the ballot is so important. The vote matters, because that is where the rubber meets the road. That is where the power is. That is your ultimate power, the power to seat and unseat.
Yes.
Yes.
You have a
thank you
choice.
all. I'm
Yes.
ready.
Off the couch.
Well,
Let's
I will
do
have, as soon as the public hearing, I will have my little computer on the background playing.
Yes.
I'll be on my regular work computer over here, but I'll be over here listening to the YouTube
too.
channel. Because you know what? It's so, all last year and in 2020, when, we like, that's all we had and whatnot. I learned so much because we were all on Zoom, because I can't go up there. So I would just plug in and dial in and just listen to it in the background, and my daughter be like, Simone, she'd be like, Rhonda, mommy's Robin's on the phone. She's up on the floor again. I'm like, yeah, she sure is. I said, wait. She was like, I think that other lady, she's talking about Pat Billy Miller.
When you think about it, most people don't have the luxury to take off work, go in the middle of the day and do this. But with Zoom, and a lot of us still working from home, we can take breaks, or we can have 2 computers, at least listen in to see what's going on. And that's important to stay on top of what's happening. And
that was really awesome.
That's how they get this stuff through, because it's under the radar. Nobody's paying attention. Nobody's tuned in.
Yeah.
Nobody's being educated. So I want to piggyback off of what Dory said earlier. Just thank you so much, Hampton Action Now.
Yeah.
Because this platform is really providing our people with an opportunity to gain the knowledge and the tools to use the knowledge. So thank you. Yes. And thank you for the way you fight, Taran, because I tell you, it was the DTC last night, but it has also been public hearings and committee meetings where, your face is a very familiar face. So
and Taryn, I appreciate you. He keeps me up to date. It's hard. It's hard running an organization, working a full time, having a family, and knowing everything. But it's people like Taryn and others that kind of keep me abreast, and that helps me then share with my membership.
That's right.
So we're all helping each other, and that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take. And I appreciate
iron sharpens iron.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So thank you, President Dory Dilmas.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
She is everywhere.
I know. She is everywhere.
Everywhere, doing everything, fighting the good fight on the strength of the people, and standing on the shoulders of it. Look, our ancestors' wildest dreams come true.
We are.
Yes.
You're number 75 on the speaker list tomorrow, President Dumas, and Ronnie, you're at number 69.
69, yeah. So, all right. I'm going to play it in the background.
Taran, what number are you?
Oh, that's not my role. my role is to help a lot of people take action.
Organize.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sherry
You know,
Quickmeyer,
we
she's going to be
testify.
speaking though, right? Sherry will be speaking tomorrow.
She's planning to.
Okay.
I believe so. So.
I don't know if I
Awesome.
seen testimony from her.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I was reading some of it. It is just like, wow.
I'm telling you.
Wow. Listen to this. Hereby, this I'm not going to read her name, but I, so-and-so, hereby strongly oppose Senate Bill 184 and House Bill 5262. Our absentee voting should not be changed. We are no longer in a pandemic. Absentee voting needs to be reserved for those who physically cannot make it to the polls due to being severely incapacitated, as documented by a medical professional, or who will not be in the state of Connecticut on election day. These bills open absentee voting up to a wide range of interpretations that can lead to confusion and ultimately to ballot fraud. These bills should not pass both the House or the Senate. Our election system in this state, as well as in the country, is already highly flawed. These bills will make the situation much worse. This is simply another critical step needed to institute another unsolicited mass mailing on election day.
Said probably somebody very privileged that can go vote and easily get there and don't have any issues.
And somebody very white. As a white person, I'm going to say that, you know.
Well,
well,
I mean,
you can say that on this panel.
You know, yeah, but the sad part is that yet again we're talking about, you know, it's with everything though. I mean, it's like your opinion is the only opinion that counts, and your experience is the only experience that counts, and that is not inclusion, and it just reeks of, you know, this American individualism that some folks like to cling to. So, you know, this is why it's like President Dumas said, it's very important that we get into more of a community. We need to be more community minded about these kind of issues. Get to the community wherever they are. Hand them a piece of something, piece of paper, lit flyer, something. Explain to them how important what's happening. I said, because those voices are the reason why people in prison can't vote.
Right.
Those are the people that made these decisions that said parolees can't vote. See, when all of this was all going on behind the scenes, you know, people were being disenfranchised because they're living in a different zip code.
Exactly.
You know, so we have to.
We're counting.
We have to.
You know, under districts where they were not being represented. I'll never forget. We were on a judice committee meeting, and I forget what they were testifying about, but it had to do with, you know, incarcerated folks. And Gary and I both were able to say, Senator Winfield, were able to say, you know, like, these folks write to us, we go to visit, you know, like, we sit with them, we help them. And I won't name the senator up in that neck of the woods, but he was like, wow, they never write to me. And I'm saying to myself, they never write to you. And you know why they write to me and Senator Winfield? Because this is where we should be their representative, because they're from here. But they're being counted somewhere else for the benefit of a district that doesn't resemble them. And guess what? When they're released, will not allow them to stay there.
Exactly.
They drop them right back off here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why aren't we getting the benefit of having them counted so that we can have those resources and funding that go along with that count?
But we won that battle, didn't we?
We sure did. We finally
did.
won that
And
one.
we should
Finally.
have. As we
Last
should
year we
have.
got a lot of good stuff done.
NAACP has been following that, and so happy that we were able to be a part of helping to get that passed as well.
Yes. And that was a milestone.
Yes.
On to the next. Here we are.
Yes, we
will be having more
Tomorrow.
conversations. I will be inviting you wonderful people on out for more discussions. And you know, our little pack is going to be out here raising money to help support candidates to get elected in November. And so this is what community looks like right here. This is the 2022 modern virtual community that we're trying to coordinate and organize right here from our own houses comfortably. So thank you again so much for everybody's support. Please tune in tomorrow. If you go to the GAE You can click on it and it'll give you the link to the YouTube channel tomorrow. You can watch it. And then if you go to, we've dropped everything in the chat on how you can actually send in your public testimony tonight. And please stay tuned. Replay this back, send this video to other people so they can see it and understand what's happening in the community. And by any means, if you know anybody who's not registered to vote, get them registered immediately now. Get it done early, because that's another problem.
That's right.
People wait too late to
Absolutely.
get registered, and then they turn them away for that.
No.
That's right.
We register all year long, and
All year long.
if anybody ever needs anything, you can go online. But if you're not comfortable doing that, the NAACP always has them available.
That's
voter
right. The
registration
last
form.
time I saw you, you were
Yeah,
at Believe in Me Corp.
that's right.
Registering
Yes.
people to vote. So that is the absolute truth.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, everyone.
guys.
I really appreciate
chatting
all
with
of
you.
you and everything that you do. And have a great night and a great day tomorrow.
Yes,
Take
you as
care.
well. Good night, guys. Take
Good night.
care.